Hi, welcome to today's Wisdom Wednesday. It's episode number 111. And let's see if I'm all set up here today. There we go. And what we're going to be talking about today is life's ups and downs and how they really show that you're actually still alive, that you're actually still in the game. I'm going to also introduce several of the favorite tools that I use to gain more insight and awareness when my energy is off kilter. But before we get into all of that, let's start by setting the tone for the day by remembering to live in harmony with the infinite wisdom that dreamed you into being. And to help you recognize that you are not alone. And when you are living out of harmony with this, you can particularly feel those ups and downs. You can particularly feel those downs so much more severe when you are out of harmony with your infinite wisdom. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Carrie Fox, and one of my main missions in life is to be a constant reminder of your infinite wisdom connection, and that connection is always available for you. I know so many people who feel alone. You are never alone. You are fully supported by infinite wisdom. And I also do these videos because basically you're thriving. That's one of my passions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start today by sharing my absolute most favorite and regularly used tool. But before I do, I want to take a quick look at the basics of how energy is measured, like with a sine graph, like I'm showing here. A sine graph has a center line that divides the top and the bottom of the chart, and there will be an indication of time that goes from left to right. Now, a typical energy wave will spend half of the cycle of that wave above that center line and half below the center line. That is one cycle, half above, half below. And this particular chart is showing 3 1/4 cycles. So, and also often a graph will show 2 sine lines on one graph, like this one has both a red line and a blue line. So now with those two things out of the way, without a doubt, my favorite tool is a biorhythm chart. Now, biorhythm charts that most people use are typically 3 lines like you see here, but really there are much more of those cycles that can be measured if you decide that you want to get into biorhythms further. But I definitely want to talk to you about the basic 3 lines. I also want to talk a little bit about the fact of what does biorhythms mean. And biorhythms means biological rhythms within our physical beings. Like sleeping is a biological rhythm, and your heart beating is a biological rhythm. But the 3 lines that are shown on the most commonly used biorhythm charts are, as it shows here underneath the waves, are the physical and emotional and intellectual rhythms or cycles that you go through. Now, if you Google biorhythms, you'll find dozens of sites that will help you look at your biorhythms. But let me add really something very seriously here. If you don't get anything else out of what we're going to do together today, I hope at the very least you embrace this tool. Now, I first learned about biorhythms back in the 1970s, and I know for some of you that's a long time ago, maybe before you were born, but there was life on planet Earth back then too. We didn't have computers, but we had life. And so when I was learning about biorhythms back in the 1970s, I was investigating every piece of it I could, but I also, as I am wont to do, I don't just accept something that I read or something tells me. I have to test it. So I figured out a way to test the biorhythms. And what I did is I made 3 year-long charts, one for me and one for each of my 2 best friends. And I consulted them and said, now what I want you to do is hang this. I hung mine on the inside of my closet door. Hang this someplace where you can access it, but I don't want you to ever look at it in advance. I want this to be a reactionary report. So when you feel out of sync with yourselves, kind of out of balance, either physically, emotionally, or intellectually, I want you to put a little X on the mark right on the chart, right at that point. And I did it, and my two friends did it. And what the information was that I gathered at the end of the year was really interesting. Two of us had our X's on our charts remarkably on the same time that the chart indicated we might have an imbalance. And the third person, her X's were consistently across the whole year about 4 days off. So that was just great at proving to me how biorhythms work. And now I've got 40, 50 years of proof. But at that time, way back then, it was enough proof for me to start supporting biorhythms and teaching about biorhythms. So for today's subject of embracing your life's ups and downs, this tool is important because, first of all, it reminds us that everything is constantly changing. Not only what happens to us, though, but also what's happening within us. Now, everyone has days where they are physically stronger and physically weaker, or days that they have more energy or days that they have less energy. And everybody has days when they are more emotional or less emotional, or they have days when their intellectual capacity is higher or their intellectual capacity is weaker. Days when you can learn something new, just learn something easy, everything comes, and days when you can read a paragraph 3 times and you still don't have it. So that's the basis of a biorhythms chart. Now, I think you all know that the path ahead of each and every one of us is rarely a straight, flat line. It's always full of bumps. So might as well embrace those bumps. And when your personal biorhythms, where your personal biorhythms are when you encounter those challenges or bumps is a big player in how you respond to them, how you react to them. So I have to admit that sometimes when I consult my chart, it's when I have one of those moments. You know, one of those moments where you walk across a flat surface and you trip and you look back and there's absolutely nothing there. Well, every time that happens to me, every few years that'll happen to me. And when I go to check my chart, it's amazing to me that it is the time that my physical biorhythm line, going to you might be going that way, will be crossing that center middle line, either from up to down or from down to up, are those days that I trip for almost no reason at all. It's almost uncanny, but even more to me, it's fun. It reminds me what a great tool the biorhythm chart is. So now on to part 2 of the journey I'm taking you on today. And it's going to be talking about or understanding astrology and the influence of the planetary relationships to Earth. Where the planets were in relationship to where you were born on the planet is kind of a baseline of your relationship to each one of those planets. Now, you don't have to study astrology. You don't have to go into any in-depth analysis of astrology, unless, of course, you want to. But I have learned that astrology is also really important in your life when you're talking about the ups and downs, which are our concept today. Because as the planets move and their relationship to Earth changes, so does each individual planet with its own individual influences will pull on or influence you. Now, again, I'm not going to get into this too deeply, but just some basic theory, like 2 things about full moons that are really easy to understand, and then you can see how that relates to other planets. The first thing about a full moon, of course, is how the moon has a relationship to the planet Earth itself, how it affects or pulls on water to create what we know of as low and high tide. The other is how the full moon affects humans. Now, I know you probably all have heard stories about how people go absolutely nutty crazy during the full moon time. So If you think about it, human beings are approximately 70% water. So the location of the moon can also pull on our physical or our cellular bodies. But add to that, that as our planet rotates, we get the energy from the sun during the day. And then when the sun is shining on the other side of our planet, our side is dark. So there is less of that intense sun energy on our half of the planet at that time, which makes it easier for us to sleep in that low energy situation and to slow down and to let our bodies rest and to let our cellular systems regenerate themselves. But if the relationship of Earth and sun and moon are in just the right position or situation, like this image, then the bright energy or light from the sun shines past our planet and hits the moon. And then that light and energy is reflected back onto the planet Earth during our dark nighttime. So basically what happens is there's a high energy during the time that we're used to being darkness and low energy. And some people don't use that extra energy very well. In fact, statistics show that there's a lot more arrests and a lot more people that end up going to the police station during full moon cycles. So now that you understand this, you can actually take advantage of this rather than have it affect you adversely as it does some people. For instance, I seldom sleep more than 2 or 3 hours a night during a full moon night. So I have learned to use those extra hours as a blessing. I just get up and get something done on my to-do list. It's a much better way to respond to this full moon energy, now that you understand that, than to complain because you can't sleep and lay there and toss and turn. I hope that makes sense. And by the way, the full moon energy is not just on one day. It's one day plus and minus a certain amount of days. So I can 2 or 3 days before or 2 or 3 days after a full moon still maybe be having a high energy and not need as much sleep. So astrology now is then part 2 of what I wanted to talk with you about today, and talking about life's ups and downs. Part 3 is going to be a little more esoteric. So let's start with the reminder that we are not just 3D human beings on the planet Earth, even though that's where most of us focus all our attention, focus all our time and energy. The image on the left in this image shows us that there is this 3D human us, and there's a very small part of us indicated in that white circle there, is that we occasionally consider that we may have a soul or a spiritual connection of some time. Lots of attention on our 3D physical body, very little attention on our spiritual connection. But the image on the right shows how our cosmic connection is so much bigger and so much more powerful than the small amount of energy that splits off into incarnating on the planet Earth as you and me as a person. The vast cosmic energy has just a piece of it, a splinter of it, that comes down and allows us to be us. So we, human beings, excuse me, are cosmic consciousness in incarnation. And our cosmic consciousness part of us decided to incarnate down onto planet Earth and experience some grand adventure. We decided to come down on a vacation, so to speak. We decided to come down, and we also decided to have some other intentions besides just our grand adventure, often called life purposes. And we knew how to adjust the coding of our DNA to help us on the particular grand adventures that we wanted to do, and any purposes that we decided to incarnate here and have in our intentions. So the theory of that looks actually something like this: that you, your cosmic consciousness, designed yourself into this incarnation with your human DNA blueprint, basically manifesting yourself and assisting yourself in your life purposes. So this is how step 3 fits in here. In that when you veer off course of your intentions, when you are out of harmony with your divine intentions, infinite wisdom, cosmic consciousness will try to nudge you and get you back on course. Or as this meme says, are you listening to the subtle nudges from the universe? Sometimes when you think you are experiencing a kicking the rug out from underneath you kind of experience, which tends to be one of the downsides of your ups and downs, you might actually be being nudged. So we need to examine, when do you need to step back and take more of a heart view of whatever you are experiencing or whatever is happening to you, so that you can recognize when something might be for you, might be a nudge, so that you can live in harmony with the infinite wisdom that dreamed you into being, so that you can carry on like a warrior, like the warrior that you really are, because you have the power of embracing your messy, beautiful life. You can choose to do that. You can choose to recognize that everything is always changing. So why not embrace it? The weather changes, the time of day changes, day to night changes. Every cell in your body changes constantly, is constantly changing and readjusting or replacing itself. Everything in life is ever flowing, and you can learn to go with that flow. You can trust your struggle to be a part of the path of your enlightenment or the flow, so that you can dance through life's ups and downs, absolutely enjoying your grand adventure. So to recap what we talked about today, we talked about life's ups and downs, and how you can feel about them can depend on where you are in your journey, and that there is the gift of the biorhythm chart to help you recognize if what you are experiencing is just a momentary extreme. We talked about that you are the recipient, is that the right word I want, of astrological influences, and that you might be being nudged by your higher self, by your cosmic consciousness, nudging you to step back and take a look. Do you need to shift something to get back on the path of that grand adventure that you intended when you came here? So do yourself a huge favor, kind of like a homework assignment. Google biorhythms and choose a site that looks good to you and learn about the 3 basic biorhythms. Now, the site that I use most often is called Biorhythm Calculator, and the website is bio-calculator.net. And it has this great explanation of what the biorhythms are, so it makes it easy to understand if you want to learn more about it. It's a really simple and easy to use site. You just enter your birth info on the left field there where it asks for it. And then most people just leave it on the day that it'll always show up on the day that you're accessing the chart. And you just then scroll down below what I'm showing here and you click calculate. And then when you scroll down a little further, you will see a 30-day view where your rhythms were 15 days before that date, where you're coming off of, and where it's going to be 15 days from your date. So the date you're looking at the chart is going to be down the center. That's the day that I access this chart. And I think you'll find that it's amazing how accurate this will be and how you can adjust it should you find that yours is off a little bit, like my friend's was. And I'm not going to spend time going into why that can happen, but it can happen. And I'm also amazed how often I'll be working with someone and they'll be talking about some dismay or concern or confusion. And I'll say, have you checked your biorhythm chart? And they almost always go, no. And so we'll check the chart, and guess what? That's explaining what they're going through. They're having a crossing day emotionally, intellectually, or physically. So this happens to be my chart. And the reason I pulled this up is because on the 13th, is that yesterday? On the 13th, I had this moment. I was just working and working and working. And all of a sudden I heard something or I read something or whatever. And I felt tears coming to my eyes. And I had to go, whoa, what's that? Because I have absolutely nothing in my life to be sad about. So I pulled up my chart. Now, if you look on this chart, the red line is emotions. And you'll see that yesterday, depending on when you actually watch this, I guess, was my emotional line was crossing from below the line to above the line. So that completely explained why I was having a moment of emotional discord, for lack of a better word. And then I could just go on because I know it's a nothingness kind of thing. So that's kind of today's episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. The next live episode is going to be at 1:00 p.m. Central Time on April 28th. It's going to be called Everything is Energy and How That Includes and Affects You. And it's going to be live at Harmony Enterprises with Carrie Fox. That's my Harmony Enterprises page. And if you want to catch this live, that's where you're going to be. Or I will then, within 24 hours, post that on my YouTube channel. And you can look it up under Carrie Laughing Fox to see all of my videos. There's 111. There's 110 videos there already. And make sure that you leave some comment. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to. And also, that's a great place either on the Facebook page or the YouTube page to let me know how you feel about something I said, or if you want me to go further into something I said, etc. So basically what we did today is we learned that to roll with your ups and downs is the way to go. Don't waste your life by getting mired in any of life's challenges, because life has ups and downs. It means you're alive, and it means you're still in the game. There will be happiness, there will be sadness, there will be success, there will be disappointment. But listen, I want to kind of just drop a line here that if for some reason you find yourself getting mired in or caught in a down, if you're feeling unable to raise back up again, like this woman, I call her Alice, because Alice reminds me of how I gave in to a severe low in my life. Actually, I became addicted to that low and other lows, to the sadness. I fell into a 2-year pit of brokenness and despair. So if you find yourself there, if you've lost your lust for life, just send me an email. Send it to Mojo Course at the bottom of the screen here at harmonyenterprises.net, and I'll get back to you with information about a course that I designed called Get Your Mojo Back. And it's basically designed to help you regain your childlike innocence and happiness. You don't want to spend one more day down in depression and despair than you have to. You did not come here to be depressed. So don't let that pull you down. Don't let that take over your life. So I want to thank you for joining me today, because as I said, you're thriving. That's my passion. And you can reach out to me anytime if you ever need any kind of support or guidance, or want to comment on something or ask me to do something on something. The most common, easiest way to do that is Carrie, which is KARI.Fox at harmonyenterprises.net, and I'll get back to you. So now what I want you to do is go and enjoy your grand adventure that you are actually supposed to be on. Join me in 2 weeks on the 28th at 1:00 Central Time at Harmony Enterprises with Carrie Fox Facebook page. And I don't see any questions that need to be asked. So what I can say for now is bye for now. Enjoy the rest of your day.